3, and then we're going to do 6, 4. I have the wrong date on the quiz, so the quiz is going to be next week on Friday, actually. So that'll be the way we end our week next week. So just a quickly friendly reminder, that's what this stuff up here is. If you have two things being multiplied together, you add their exponents. So for example, if you had x to the third times x to the second, you would add the 3 and the 2 and get x to the fifth. Okay, so just a friendly reminder, because today our exponents are going to work the same way, just bummer, they're going to be fractions. So we're going to have the same rules, just fractional exponents. Okay, I already don't like this pen because it's going to die on me in about 10 seconds. I know, I can feel it, that it's slowly, yes. Okay, let's say we have x to the 10th over x to the 8th.
The colors just confuse me.
Sorry. So when you have a problem like this, you take the top exponent and subtract the bottom. So remember, in subtraction, the order is important. So you always take the top one minus the bottom. So what's that going to give me when I subtract? X to the 10 minus 8. 2. Okay. That's okay. It's okay. Maybe it'll jumpstart in a second. All right, when you have a power to a power, do you remember what we do with our exponents here? Yeah, you sure do. You multiply them. So this is x to the 6th because we're going to multiply. So I multiplied here. Another thing that happens is if you have two things in parentheses, let's say I have an x and a y, and I have a squared outside, I have to make sure I square both the things. So this would give me x squared, y squared. So you've got to make sure that it goes to both. And then the same is true here. If you have a power outside, let's say we have a fraction. Let's go with something not too tricky. Let's go with 2/3 raised to the second power. So the same thing here. You have to apply this exponent to both. So I'm going to get 2 squared over 3 squared. So the square goes to both the numerator and denominator. What do we know 2 squared is? 4. And what do we know 3 squared is? 9. So my answer would be 4 over 9. Then if you can reduce, you should. So if this had been 4/8, I could reduce to 1/2. It's not, but if it had been, I could reduce. So all these rules that we've had in the past about exponents still apply. Okay? But now our exponents are fractions, so that's what's changing. Okay, so this first one, we've got multiplication of two things, right? The bases are the same, they're both x. So which one of these does that match with? We have multiplication of two things. Part A is like what? It is the first one. So it's like the very first one. So I could even draw an arrow. So if it's helpful to remember, like this one matches with this. So this one matches with that very first thing. So what did I do with my exponents? Add them. So I have x to the, all right, so we have 2/3 plus 4 more thirds. So how many thirds do I have overall? 2/3 and 4 more thirds. Yep, I have 6 thirds. So remember, when you're adding fractions, the denominator follows along, but the numerators truly do get added. So if somebody gave you 2/3 of a candy bar, and then they gave you 4/3 of another candy bar, total you have 6 thirds.
Are you supposed to add the 3s?
Nope, you don't add the 3s. So the
confusing?
thirds are like your unit of measure, they're just staying along for the ride.
What if they're like different?
Well, if they're different, then I can't add them because I need a common denominator. But the good news is I didn't give you any of those today. So we won't have to go into that what if land today. Like these are different, but we're gonna multiply them, so that's not gonna be a problem. So I don't have any where you have to get a common denominator today. Okay, so before I finish up part A, those are all good questions. Before I finish up part A, can I divide 6 by 3 and get like a nice good number? What is it? 2. So this is x squared. So that would be my final answer. So we always need to simplify if we can. So keep your eye out for that.
How did it turn into x squared?
The 6 divided by 3 gave me 2. So that fraction can simplify.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So just the fraction simplified, that's it. All right, let's look at part B. We have a power on the inside of parentheses and a power on the outside. So which one is this one like?
The third again.
Yeah, the third one down. So this one is like this one. So these two are similar to each other. So again, if it helps to buddy them up so you know like, okay, who's similar with who, you can do that. Okay, so this is going to give me x to the, I'm going to multiply my exponents together, and I'm going to write them much bigger because you know I need to. So I'm going to multiply my exponents together. There they are. Do you remember how to multiply fractions? A little bit different than adding them.
It's the
I know some people think cross multiply, but that's something different. So with multiplying fractions, we multiply through the top. So 2 times 3 is 6. And then we multiply through the bottom. 5 times 4 is 20. So for multiplying fractions, we've got to remember all these little rules. I think that's what gets harder as we get up higher in math, is that all the rules still apply that we've learned before, right? Like how to add and multiply fractions. Even though like that's not the main topic here, we still got to remember how to do it. Okay, I can reduce this fraction, so I'm going to go one step further. What number divides into both 6 and 20? 2, yeah. So if I divide each by 2 to reduce it, to make it smaller, what do we know 6 divided by 2 is? 3. And then 20 divided by 2? 10. And so this would be my final answer because I can't simplify it or do anything else to it. So that would be my final. Good for that one? Again, lots of little rules. It's not like these are like 20 steps long, and that's what makes them hard. It's remembering the little rules. It's the little things, yes. Okay, look at part C. Which one does part C match up to? We've got a fraction with stuff in the top and bottom. Yeah, the second one. So again, I'm going to draw just a little arrow up here. I've got kind of a crazy road map going on. But this one matches, let me zoom out so you can kind of see all my arrows for a minute there. That one matches up with the second one. So again, it helps to match them up, and that's kind of what I hope you do when you get the classwork, right? I hope that you look at the classwork problem and you kind of see what it's similar to and use your notes. At least that's the goal of them. Okay, let me zoom back in because those are small. Okay, so remember this is going to give me x, and we take the numerator, which looks like 3/4. What do we think, people? Minus 1/4? Is that a 1/4?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a good thing I brought my readers. That's
Heck
real
yeah.
time.
It is.
So you hate
I'm like, hold on. Eye testing.
Eye testing.
Yes.
Free eye test.
Okay. So again, you always do the one that's in top goes here. So believe it or not, again, because they're small, I think I'm going to highlight. This one went here. So there's that fraction. And then the bottom one, the bottom exponent is here. So that's where they went. Okay. If I have, so this is similar to A in how we deal with the fraction. If I have 3/4 of a candy bar and somebody comes and steals 1/4 of my candy bar, obviously I'm mad and chase them down. But how much do I have left? 2/4. So 3/4 take away 1/4. Now I have 2/4. Can I reduce 2/4?
Yes.
Yes, then I need to. Okay, they're both divisible by what? 2. So I'm going to divide by 2. Divide by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. And then in the denominator, 4 divided by 2 is 2. And that would be my final answer. So again, always make sure you reduce. So when I go through and I grade things in this type of a section, this last step, if you didn't realize you could reduce, I'm not going to take off much because it's not the main point, but it's still something you got to look for. So I take off like a little half point. Okay, this last one is like this last one that we saw. And so we have a 1/3 power. Do you remember what root a 1/3 power matches with? Cube root. So I'm going to put a cubed root in the top. And I'm going to put a cubed root in the bottom. And I'm going to write it like that because sometimes, and we were having this discussion yesterday in 6 hours, sometimes it's just easier for me to read it to see it like that. So I'd rather have the cubed roots there. Okay, so we can either go back in our notes or use our calculator. Do you remember what the cubed root of 27 is? 3. And how about the cubed root of 64?
8. No.
Ooh, that would be square root 4. So 3/4 would be my final answer here. So these would be all of my answers for this section. Are we ready to try some examples a little bit more on our own?
Yeah.
Okay. I got one yes, one no.